Is your host, Dave Brinker. We have a special segment today, which is going to kick off a whole new era in my podcast. This segment is going to be called the Elevation Journal. I'm going to release one of these a week, usually on Fridays, but maybe some other days as well. It's just going to be me talking. So if you like just the interviews, skip out on this one because this one is just me. And I'm hoping to keep these under 30 minutes. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a look into what these will be. So what is it? It's a monologue. It's just me, as I said. It's journal-esque. It's going to be about self-improvement, accountability. I'm going to be sharing my story. I'm pretty open about it. If you follow me on Instagram or anything else, I'm pretty open about my life, my struggles, my successes. I'm going to be sharing my story. And my hope is that you guys can take and leave what you want to hopefully make your life better or make you the best version of yourself. Because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to come up with the best version of myself. So why am I doing this? Interview styles are awesome. I love talking to my guests. I have them on every week, and I'm going to continue to do that. But I also wanted to be able to talk about other things. So I decided to do this segment. And again, to share my story, to hope have everybody improve alongside me with me. It gives me a little bit of accountability too. If I have to talk about it, that means I also have to do it. And so that's good. There's going to be 4 parts to this. First part is this week's learning from whatever guest I had. I'll do it, bullet point style. Just summarize what I learned from this week's guest. I always learn something from everybody, even if I've known them for years. And so that's super fun. The second part will be around mental fitness. I'll talk about struggles, things I've overcome, books I'm reading, etc. The third part will be around physical fitness. What's my workout routine? How are things going? What am I struggling with? Did I get lazy and not work out? Also, what types of stuff I'm finding success in, what types of stuff I'm not finding success in, diet-wise or workout-wise. Okay, so the fourth part will be something to take away for the weekend. Maybe that'll be a question that I get from you guys where I answer it, or it's just something that I learned this week at a high level that I think is valuable that you can, again, take or leave. So that's kind of how it's going to be laid out. This is the first one, so bear with me, but it's a pretty free-flowing, semi-structured thing that I hope you guys enjoy. So here we go. All right, so the first thing that I wanted to do is I had Jason Matzinger on the podcast this week. Jason has been a friend of mine for years at this point. I think we decided on the podcast that we've known each other for 12 years or 13 years, something like that. For those that don't know, I worked at Sitka Gear for 11 years. I was one of the first ones that was hired there. And in 2007, when I started, Jason was one of the first people that we indirectly started working with because he was sponsored by our first real dealer, which is Schnee's Boots in Bozeman, Montana. So Schnee's placed the first really big order any dealer placed with us, which is pretty cool. Jason, at the time, sold his DVDs in their store. He was pretty early in the content creation movement on the hunting side, selling DVDs, filming all of his hunts. And anyways, that's when we met, and that's when I noticed him. Jason is one of the nicest, most genuine people in the hunting industry. And that says a lot because any industry that has a lot of alpha males and competition for better or worse, it has some pretty ugly underbellies, if you will. And finding people that are truly, truly good people that you want to spend time around in and out of the woods, and you can call with problems or just as a true friend. Those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. And Jason's always been that to me. So one of my takeaways from Jason is how valuable it is to be just authentic and genuine and not feel like you have to, bulldoze over people, because people like that don't last long in the industry. He's done a great job of maintaining longevity in the industry. He has a successful TV show. He's the creator of multiple successful films, successful hunter. He also, the second thing about Jason is he maintains his electrical license. So he started out as an electrician. His father owns a successful electrical business in Montana. And he had a very, I mean, if you will, safe job as an electrician. He actually loved being an electrician, but he'd always dreamed about filming and being part of the industry, of the hunting industry. And he had actually always filmed his hunts and his father's hunts and his father's friends' hunts, excuse me. But he'd always wanted to make a living doing it, but he had failed to take that leap, or it just hadn't tried it yet. And there came a time when his mother got really bad cancer, and she was actually, she had to get a liver transplant. It was an awful, terrible part of his life and his dad's life. And she was dying, and his dad said, Jason, like his dad had a real realization. His dad had been a workaholic his whole life, daylight to dark. If you're not working, then you're not anything. But that whole situation around his wife, Jason's mother, kind of changed his perspective on things. And he passed the advice on to Jason. It's like, man, like work's great, man, but if you have something you want to do, you need to go do it now, because why not? You're young. So that kind of gave Jason the little push he needed to start actually filming his hunts and trying to sell them and become a sponsored hunter, if you will. And he's never turned back. He maintains his license, which I think is rad, because he's got a good fallback. There's nothing wrong with having a fallback, in my opinion. But also he can do what he wants. He's created a really cool freaking life. So that's pretty cool. The other thing I think is cool about Jason's story is he's kind of created his own unique voice in the filmmaking side of things. And some people like it and some people don't. And that's a good sign, because if you don't have people that don't like what you're doing, it means kind of what you're doing isn't really making much noise at all, or you might really actually not be saying anything. Generally speaking, you can tell when you're actually saying something is when the haters pop up. So Jason has a very unique style, what he does, that you can go watch his films and kind of deduce how to describe that yourself. But it's his stamp, and many people like it, and some people don't. It doesn't matter. He has blazed a trail that he should be proud of, and he's going to continue to be. So I think that's pretty inspiring and cool stuff. So you need to check out Jason's episode. There's been a lot of good feedback so far on it. All right, so let's talk about sort of a mental check-in this week. I've been trying to read more, and so part of the mental segment of these journals is going to be talking about the books I'm reading. So I just finished Cameron Hanes' Endure and David Goggins' Never Finished, and I did an Instagram post on it, but I'm just going to kind of go through it again on here. So we'll start with Cameron's book, Endure, but I think there's a lot of similarities between the two books. But I'll start with Endure. So side note, I've met and spent time several times around Cameron. I don't, know him that well, but I've definitely spent time around him. And I can tell you that what you see is what you get with Cameron. He wears it all on his sleeve. What does he care about? Well, he cares about elk hunting, fitness, pushing himself, his family, and his job. And that's it. He's a pretty simple guy, and he's pretty open about everything. He shares everything. He has maintained a job at the county down in Eugene, Oregon for a lot of years, successfully, takes vacation to hunt, and has a normal job. His whole message is around, he wants to push himself as far as he can mentally and physically in order to get the most positive results in the elk woods. That's what he wants to do. And I think some people misinterpret it as him preaching to them that they need to run 14 miles a day and sleep 4 hours a night and then run another 14 miles in order to be able to kill elk. In his book, he highlights how that's absolutely not what he's saying. He actually says in the book, you don't need to do what I do to kill elk. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying for me, meaning him talking to himself, I want to push myself as far as I can with my shooting and my physical and mental fitness to absolutely make triple, quadruple, quintuple sure that I'm the best I can be in the woods for the to kill, make a great ethical kill on that elk and honor that animal with my best effort. That does not mean that every elk hunter needs to do what he does. And I think people misunderstand that about Cam. It can come off kind of off-putting to people. It can make people feel threatened. It can make them feel bad about themselves. I think if that's the way you're feeling about his message, maybe if you want to take the time, just read the book. He has very powerful stories about his friend Roy Roth, who was an incredible hunter that he grew up with in the Eugene area that ended up tragically dying on a mountain in Alaska sheep hunting. And a bunch of other really, really powerful stories in the book that are much beyond just running, lifting, and shooting, which is his main message. He has a family past that I thought was interesting. His dad being an alcoholic, but also a track star. So you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse into how Cam, you know, he will say he's not talented. I think he's a pretty talented athlete. But kind of where a little bit of that came from. His dad was a star athlete in the Eugene area, but struggled with alcoholism. And he talks a lot about their relationship and how it was kind of broken. But later in life, before his dad passed away, it was kind of, you know, put back together, which I think is a pretty powerful story. And then just the overall story of basically how can you be better, and how, if you have something that you care about as much as elk hunting means to him, how can you prepare your body and your mind to be the best you can be for that? And it's your own version of it, folks. So don't let it threaten you or be off-putting. I think that was kind of my takeaway from that book. All right. So Dave Goggins, never finished. Goggins is, if you don't, you've seen clips of him if you're on social media at all. He is like super duper intense, incredibly intense. I would highly recommend looking him up if you don't know who he is. But in order to understand why he is so intense, it's pretty important to kind of go into his backstory. He was literally born into this world with almost every disadvantage that you can have, you know, from major health issues to abusive family to poverty to being a African American in a predominantly white area. The list goes on and on. Long story short, he ended up being kind of a loser, overweight, didn't know what he was going to do with his life, depressed, sitting on the couch eating chips. And he had a series of realizations occur where he kind of just figured out this idea of no one gives a shit. If you want to get your life together, you're going to have to take accountability and do it yourself. So he signed up for the Navy, signed up for the SEALs, passed buds, on down the line to where today he went from being that lazy piece of shit in his own terms. It's not me calling him that. He was a lazy piece of shit in his own terms to what he termed as the baddest motherfucker on the planet. He has passed Navy SEAL school, Ranger school, I believe Air Force pararescue. He's one of the only people that's gone through almost all the different special forces. And he's now also a smoke jumper. He's an endurance athlete. He's a motivational speaker. He's a leadership coach. Absolutely incredible story. And the best part about it is he actually knows how to articulate it. His book is very well written. It's easy to understand and extremely powerful. And there's some really, really rough parts, like where he's talking about, you know, the abusive family stuff and some of the issues that his mother went through and he went through getting beat. There's some not fun stuff, but you have to get through that to understand why he is the way he is. And I will say the same thing about him that I say about Cameron, which is don't misunderstand what he's saying. He is not telling you that you need to go ruin your knees and run 250 miles in a race or run 2 marathons every day and lift weights and never sleep and never be comfortable and be the baddest motherfucker on the planet. That is absolutely not his message. His message is how do you push yourself past what you think are your limits to make you the best version of yourself? Period. End of story. That is what he's saying. Anybody that says different, I just disagree. So read that book. He has somebody else read it, but what he does is between every chapter, they do a mini podcast on that chapter where David actually dives in and tells more stories in depth, which I think is super cool. It's a really, by the way, I don't, just for future reference, I don't physically read books. I listen to them. Sorry for those that like holding the books, like my wife. I can't do it. I fall asleep. I'm too lazy. I got to listen to the book and do something else, whether I'm flying on planes or, working out or driving in my truck. I have to listen. So if you're a big book listener, so Cameron reads his book. Goggins has somebody else read it, but he does those mini podcasts in between the chapters. Both are incredible books. I think there's nuggets you can take from both of them, depending on where you are in your life. So that's what I got to say about that. All right. So physical side of my fitness story is I quit drinking 4.5 months ago. I was pretty public about it just because I would challenge people to stop drinking for 30 days just to see how they felt. I'm not an alcoholic, but I love the taste of beer. I love the taste of frickin' whatever. I just like having a drink, red wine, seltzers, whatever. And part of it is because I like the taste of it. Part of it's because it's like a habit. I never get drunk. The other part of it is it takes the edge off my anxiety. I have general anxiety disorder. I have to take a medication for it. And alcohol does take the edge off my anxiety for a small moment in time, which sometimes when I've had a stressful day, that is nice at night to have that edge taken off. But there are consequences. And the consequences for me is I usually wake up at about 2 a.m. with my heart racing. I feel dehydrated. I don't sleep good. I wake up the next day and I feel like shit. Therefore, I have to take a power nap in the afternoon. And then I really don't sleep good the next night because I'm not tired, et cetera, on and on. For me, alcohol can be fun around friends or whatever, but I've really struggled to find the benefit to actually doing it as much as I did. So I am doing a 12-month test. I'm not drinking for 12 months. I'm 42 years old. I have dedicated this year to no alcohol. And I got to tell you guys, 4.5 months in, the only time I've like the recent last few weeks, I barely think about it at all. The first couple months I did for sure. There's been a couple occasions when I've thought about it. One, I was on an airplane the other day. I used to like to have a drink on an airplane or at an airport, like a cold beer at an airport. For some reason, that tastes really good. But really, it's really tapered down to where I don't think about it much. And even when I lay in bed at night to go to sleep, I feel so much better. I'm like, God, I'm so glad I didn't have a drink tonight. Now, there's been a few stressful events that have happened in my life, which also can be a trigger for me to have a drink, where I've really craved it. And I've had to find other ways to get rid of that stress, whether that be exercise, sleep, taking a walk, calling a friend, whatever. But it kind of, if you make the pledge like I did, for me, like I'm not gonna fuck it up. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna drink for 12 months. You have to find ways to push through it. You don't have a choice. I also erased the alcohol from my house. I did notice some seltzers hiding the other day that I got to get those out of here because it did look good. But from a physical standpoint, I've lost about 8 or 10 pounds. Now that's not all from the alcohol or the lack thereof. I have, along with not drinking, I have been dedicated to an exercise routine, which is 5 to 6 days a week of at least 30 minutes of exercise, if not an hour of exercise. And the first few months, it was mostly cardio. I love cardio. It makes me feel really good. I actually like running, but my lower back's awful. And so I actually bought an Echelon bike, which I've found to be extremely beneficial if you like cardio, but running hurts your knees or your back. I got a great sweat on the Echelon bike. I can do all kinds of dynamic things on there, whether you can even do weights along with it. They have all kinds of classes. I found that to be awesome. I've done almost 100 rides on it and I'm addicted to it. But I've also realized that I have to incorporate weightlifting into my routine. So, excuse me. The last month and a half, I've been incorporating more weights. Now, I don't have a full gym in my area, but I have a pretty good gym. So I bought a pull-up bar, a bar dip bar, and a bunch of kettlebells and dumbbells. And I'm able to do, kind of a mixed variety of weights and body weight movements to increase my strength while I'm working on my cardio. Overall, the last 4 months have been life-changing for me. I've never been in better shape. In fact, when I look at pictures of myself, even from 6 months or a year ago, I'm like, dude, how come no one told me I look like the worst dad bod on the planet? Like, come on, guys, you got to be honest with me. I got the big donut around my stomach. Like, I'm 42. I want to look, I want to look and feel good. This is like the prime of my life. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, with that said, I'm pretty excited to announce that Mountain Tough is going to be Mountain Tough Fitness out of Bose, Montana. Incredible company with an incredible team. They have an app, and it's a whole program focused around being the best physical version of yourself to conquer the mountains. I'm partnering with them for this segment. And so the last 2 weeks I've been doing their program. Funny backstory, I was actually one of their first test cases in Bozeman, Montana about 5 years ago, but they're like a pretty big company now. And we're going to partner on this segment because it's just perfect. They have mental toughness portions of their program, but a lot of really hard workouts, daily workouts with no equipment, workouts with equipment. I highly recommend you check out the Mountain Tough Fitness app. There'll be a lot more of that to come, but I've been doing that the last 2 weeks, and it's a great mix of like explosive movements, body weight movements, weight movements, a lot of pull-ups, a lot of push-ups. And I found as my strength increases, along with my cardio, that's like physical fulfillment. Like, I'm feeling great, and I look forward to it. I look forward to just absolutely getting ruined every day in my Mountain Tough workout. So I'm pretty excited about that. I'll keep you guys posted on it too. I'm going to do a jiu-jitsu competition, which I've also been doing the last 3 months. I just started, so I suck, but I'm going to do a jiu-jitsu competition in the next few months. And strength and cardio and gas tank are a big deal, along with obviously technique. So I'll keep you guys posted how all this is going every week. I'm going to tell you if I take a day off or if I suck or if I'm not feeling it, because that's just real shit. So, all right. So something to take away for the weekend, this week. So last week I went to the dermatologist, and I had this red growth on my shoulder. I know that's kind of gross to say. But it was red growth in my shoulder. It was kind of like, felt like a tumor, a fatty tumor or whatever. And my doctor's like, I don't know. And she didn't think much about it, but referred me to a dermatologist. The dermatologist took a look at it and goes, whoa, that's not good. We need to do a biopsy on that. Now, dermatologists do biopsies on, I'm a moly guy. They do biopsies on people all the time. And most of the time nothing comes up. It's just a safety procedure, because skin cancer sucks. But the way she looked at me with this shoulder thing, definitely scared the shit out of me. I tried to act really tough and cool. And I'm like, well, what do you think it is? I mean, I'm sure it's nothing, right? And she's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, tell me worst case scenario. And she goes, are you sure you want to know worst case scenario? She's like, okay, but you got to promise me you won't go Dr. Google on me or WebMD, MD, because it'll drive you crazy. I said, no. I won't do that. Promise. Lie, by the way. And she goes, okay, worst case scenario, it could be a really aggressive form of melanoma that, if it is, I'm going to send you directly to OHSU, which is the big hospital in Portland, Oregon, to do a MRI or whatever, a body scan to see if the cancer has spread to your organs. I'm like, well, holy shit, give me the good news, please. And she's like, give me the best case scenario, please. And she goes, the best case scenario would be it's just a benign growth and it's whatever, it's nothing, right? I'm like, well, what's the middle scenario? And she's like, well, the middle scenario would be like a less aggressive form of cancer that we can just cut the growth off and you're good. You just got to watch it. Okay, fine. So when I left, I felt pretty relaxed. I'm like, it's probably nothing. But as the day wore on, and this is part of my neurotic anxiety, guys, like my mind can't help but going to worst case scenario in any stressful situation. It's something I battled my whole life. I got it from my mother, and I got to watch it. Well, in this case, I'm like, that worst case scenario kept spiraling and spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. And pretty soon I was Dr. Googling and WebMDing. And I was like in the depths of really ugly pictures and death stories, and like how the really aggressive forms of melanoma, they can go from your skin to your organs in weeks and you don't even know it. And so then I got to thinking about like dying, right? Oh, by the way, she said it would be a week or two before I got lab results. So here I got like 10 days of anxiety coming, right? So a day passes, and I'm like, it's really starting to bug me. And I started to think about like, and I know this is ridiculous. Believe me, I'm fully aware this is ridiculous. But I started thinking about like, if it was worst case scenario, like what does life look like? I have 3 kids and they're young kids, and I have a beautiful wife and I have an awesome life. I love my life. And I just don't think about dying very much, I guess. But if you really think about dying, like what if you died today? What if you died tomorrow? Like what if this was your last week? It is one of the most psychedelic, intense experiences. If you can, and I'm not recommending it necessarily, although I do think it's pretty valuable, which I'll get to. If you have as long as you can have a good outcome and you don't actually die, to feel this feeling of like how finite and temporary everything we do is, from like this house I live in, the box that I live in, the truck I drive, you know, the scenery I see every day, the things I eat, the people I know, like all of this is just temporary. We're borrowing all of it. And it's kind of grim, but it was so intense thinking about that. And then it started getting sad, right? Then I started thinking about, God, my kids are not going to have a dad. What's that going to be like? Like, will Rachel, my wife, remarry? Well, I'm okay with that. I'm dead. Like, I want her to remarry. I want my kids to have a dad. But God, is he going to take them hunting? Is he going to take teach my daughter guitar? Is he going to, is he going to be good to Rachel? How do I know that? How can I ensure that? How are they going to be safe? What about financially? How does life insurance work? What about my businesses? Like, I don't know what happens if I die to my businesses. I should probably think about that. So all these thoughts are going through my head. I can't sleep. I'm having trouble eating. And again, I know this is ridiculous to those out there that don't have anxiety, but trust me, if you have the neurotic brain that I have and a lot of other people have and may not admit, these are the things that are going through your mind. So I started thinking about, okay, I'm wasting my time on a bunch of bullshit that I don't need to be worrying about. I want to go play with my kids. I want to go shoot bows with my son. I want to be outside in the sunshine. I don't want to stare at frickin' Instagram. I want to, like all these things are swirling around. And I'm thankful they did, because when I did get the news that it was benign and that she was actually relieved, she's like, I was pretty relieved because I was a little worried. I could feel the weight come off my chest. And immediately I was like, even though that several day waiting period sucked, I'm kind of thankful for it, because there's not a lot of times in life that you can actually get a real reality check, right? Because we're all moving so fast and involved in so much meaningless bullshit. Unless you're really lucky and you can really trim the bullshit from your life, we're all doing things that don't really matter. We're stressing about things that you shouldn't be stressed about. Spending time doing things we probably shouldn't be, not spending enough time with the people we should be, not calling the people we should be. Like, it's not often you get the opportunity to be like slapped in the fucking face and realize how temporary this all is. And then it's worthless if you don't use that moment, right? So like, I've been trying to like remember how it feels to feel that way and shape my life based on that new perspective. And it's hard because I get right back in my routines doing the same bullshit. And I got to like pull the plug and be like, no, dude, that phone call is not that important. Go shoot bows with Easton. Or, those emails will be there tomorrow. Go watch a movie with the kids, or take talk to your wife for 15 minutes without being distracted by your phone or something stupid, right? So if I had one takeaway for the weekend for everybody just to think about, I would say it's learn from my experience, and you don't need to have your own stressful experience like that, but like, I guess just realize how temporary everything is around you, and spend times around the people you love, and boil it down to the simple things, right? Like, we're all pretty lucky to live in the time that we do. And it's a beautiful world out there. So I hope you guys all have a wonderful weekend. The last thing I'm going to say is I have a new song out that's called Wild as Me, and it's out on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you listen to music. I hope you guys all go check it out. I also hope that you subscribe to the Altitude Show YouTube channel, where all these videos are going to live, including all the other episodes and interviews and clips. I hope that you all follow me on Instagram at DaveBrinker_. And most of all, I hope you turn all that shit off and go outside and enjoy the world, because you never know when the last day is. So with that, I'll leave you. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend, folks.